Okay. So we're going to give it a few minutes for people to come on in. A few more minutes for people to come on in. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. All right, family, as y'all coming on in, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, as you're coming on in. And if you're brand new, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you share this video everywhere so that we can hassle the YouTube algorithm so we can get this truth and knowledge to the top of the charts so we can expose more people to objective realism. Let me see who's up in here. And as y'all watching, hit one if the audio and video quality is good, if it's in sync, and hit 2 if there's audio and visual issues. If there's audio visual issues, hit 2. If audio and visual is fine, hit 1. All right. And we know the quality is good. Okay. All right. So shalom to Mark Benjamin in the building. Zeph, shalom. Sister Shannon Hare, haven't seen you in a while, sis. Shalom. I Love for Man Podcast Network. Shalom. Luke 12:51 Truth. Shalom. Jacolia's Gems in the building. Shalom. I Love for Man Podcast Network. Shalom King. Get Wise. Shalom. Andre Waverez. Shalom. Sir Loud Ward. If I'm saying that right. Shalom. Sharuka Israel. Shalom. What's going on, sis? Gavin Miller. Shalom. Sister Santua. Yes, I see you. I'll go ahead and check it out and give you some feedback on that. I appreciate the hard work over there, sis. Go Travel Broadcom. Shalom. Warfare Rebirth of a Nation. Shalom. Let's see. Jean. Shalom. Katria Israel. Shalom. Let's see who else I see up in here. Mother Fields in the building. Shalom. Yas Chosen. Shalom. Kodak. Shalom. Kaya Houston. Shalom. Shalom. What's going on? Let me see. Did I cover everybody? Again, hit 1. If the audio and the video is okay, hit 1. If it's not, hit 2. Right? Let me know if it's looking crisp and clear. Okay, I got 3 sources of light. Got 2 in front of me, 1 behind me. So hopefully it looks good. If not, then I can just, throw on my other lights and, make it look a little bit more spiffy. But I like this where it's not too bright, at least from where I'm at. From the screen perspective, I think it's capturing pretty well. Right now, when I did the testing before with my camcorder, as you can see, it was letterboxed, so it was cropped, and I fixed it. So I'm happy I did that. In this camera, I don't have any issues when I switch to sharing screen, so that's another plus. I'm not sure what's wrong with my other webcam, but my loss is somebody else's gain. So I'm gonna donate it to somebody so that way it can benefit their ministry, like I always do. Whenever I get electronic stuff or books or whatever, and I'm done with it, I normally just give it away. Right, just give it to people so that they can be blessed by it. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to Chanaka Dyke. So, anybody here, if you're looking for any kind of electronic equipment and something in particular that you need, just email me. Right, I might have it, and I'll just send it to you. You know what I'm saying? Depending on where you're at, you may just have to pay for the shipping, but other than that, I'll just send it to you. Right, so just let me know. Shout out to Nicholas Gonzalez in the building. Shalom. All right. All right. All right. Gavin said it's all for the go. That means everything's looking good. Sister Shannon, you said you haven't been getting notifications. That's crazy. I haven't seen you here in a long time. So that means you haven't been getting notifications for a long time. I'm not sure what's up with that. What I tell people all the time is unsubscribe, resubscribe, and then hit the notification again. And then this is what you have to do. You have to watch some of my content. So once you subscribe, it's not enough to just have that there. What I realized with the algorithm is if you constantly watch content, maybe some old content on my channel, then they make sure they keep this channel's notification as hot priority. All right. So that's one way to work with the algorithm to kind of get it to work in your favor. Shout out to Damon Williamson. I see you. Shalom. Thank you for joining us. Stacks 2296 in the building. Shalom. My brother Abanawa, Hawa Shanawa. Shalom. You know what, Stacks? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised if that's the case. You know what I'm saying? And this is why I need y'all to share the video everywhere. And wherever you're at in social media, whatever platform, just share the video there, right? Because even if it is being censored through word of mouth, we could still bring people in. You know what I'm saying? So whatever the odds are stacked against us, with Yah behind our back, there's nothing that can come between us and remove us from our purpose or our goal. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what, David, that is an excellent question. And I'm going to answer that question for you. I've answered it in the past because I think people misconstrue the approach that I take, but I'm definitely going to answer. That's a great question. And I'm gonna address that for you. 1 second. Shout out to Son Diata, Marcelin, Belize in the house. We got people out in Belize. All praise to the Most High. I know exactly who that is. Shalom says to you and your Ish. Thank y'all for watching, holding it down in Belize. Hope to see y'all very soon, y'all willing. All right, so let's kick it off. Again, family, if you're coming on and hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Make sure you share this everywhere. I just got off of Clubhouse not too long ago. That's all I could do is just shake my head, man. Clubhouse is another world. Sister Santua was in there. I see her in there. And brother Emmanuel, I don't know if he's in here, but he was there too, man. Listen, if y'all don't have that Clubhouse app, go to your Google Play Store, your Apple App Store, type in Clubhouse, download and install that app, set up your profile, and follow me at DivineProspect because I'm on there frequently, not every day, but I'm on there more frequently than I do my live streams here because it's very easy to jump right into it. Live streams take time and stuff to set up. It's very easy for me to jump into it. I will be posting one of the sessions up this weekend that came across this week that was just a head shaker. Like, there was a person that said that Israel was the first LBGTQ2S plus. I forgot the 2S. Now, I just discovered 2S recently. 2S means two spirit. An individual identifies with a masculine and feminine spirit, not really the gender. And that's also been identified. Very fascinating when you look into the origin of that. But they said that Israel was the first LBGTQ2S plus nation. And I said to them that that is grossly incorrect. And that's extremely egregious to the text because the text is not teaching that, right? And they falsely went to Ezekiel chapter 16 to try and prove that. And I had to righteously correct them, right? And again, I don't have any issue with people who have that persuasion. That's your business, right? What I do have an issue of is those who propagate an agenda behind that community and impose it on those of us who do not partake in that, right? That's the issue I have. I don't have the issue with people who that's your business. In this culture, that's not our way of life. We don't engage in that in this culture, and I'm part of this culture, but I don't have any personal gripes or issues with people of that persuasion. That's your business, right? What I will say is if you come into this culture, then you got to learn what the expectations are in this culture, right? But if you're outside the culture, then there's an allowance and it's permissible. So that's your business. Just don't impose your agenda on me, right? My family, right? Or my community. That's all I'm saying, right? That's your business. Do your thing, right? But when you have an individual who is straight, a straight individual, right? A straight black male who wanted to poke fun at Israel as a people made that comment from grossly eisegeting Ezekiel chapter 16. And then another brother jumped in there to try and help that brother, and it was really bad. So I'm gonna record this session. I have the replay. I'm gonna record the session. I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna let y'all hear this, man. This is extremely eye-opening that this brother said that simply because he does not like Israel. And I said, brother, you're reading from a text that's written by Israelites. How can you not like Israel? It's just crazy. And then today the brother was saying all of Israel's cursing. God cursed Israel. I'm like, but if he cursed Israel, then how can you get blessings through the lineage of Abraham? If Israel's cursed, it's through the offspring of Abraham that the nations are blessed. So if Israel's cursed, then the nations can't be blessed. So that can't be the case. There's only a curse, and I think that's a bad translation, when you're disobedient. But through the obedience of the remnant, the righteous remnant, Yah is still displaying forth his hand in this realm until he comes to consummate the nations, judge the nations, and establish Israel as his people to rule and reign forever. And all those that cleave unto Israel, he will bring them into the kingdom, right? And those who are cleaving are the allies and the servants of Israel, just like Israel had when they exited out of Egypt and they entered into the land, right? So those are the ones that Yah's dealing with. Anybody outside of that, he's not dealing with. He's only dealing with one nation, that's Israel. And those who cleave unto Israel, to serve Israel, to ally with Israel, right? To receive or be the recipients of some of the blessings by connecting with Israel. But those who seek to do harm to Israel, those who seek to speak ill of Israel, those who say that Israel is cursing, God's not dealing with them no more. And I'm like, so that means he went back on his word. I gave a brother Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 3, where he says, I have loved Israel with an everlasting love. An everlasting love. It means it's not going nowhere, no matter what you say about Israel. And the benefactors of the overflow of that love are the nations, right? When I say nations, I'm talking about individuals from nations. He's not dealing with nations as a collective in regards to salvations. He's dealing with individuals from nations that cleave unto Israel, because his goal is to have his glorification through Israel and showing Israel to be a righteous nation despite the bad apples amongst us. So when I had to show a brother that and show these brothers who constantly try to rail against Israel, I'm just like, wow, you are kicking against the pricks, just like Paul said. That's what you're doing. And it is insane that these brothers don't have the comprehension to understand what the text is clearly saying. And they keep saying, well, to me it says. I'm like, wait, but to you it says. I said, how is it to me? I'm just reading what's there. It's not to me. I'm just reading to you what's there. It's this agenda is crazy. So when I read Psalms 83 and I talk about that conglomerate conspiracy, that thing is real. That thing is real. Let's go read it. Let me go to Psalms 83 real quick. I know a lot of you are familiar with it. We're going to read it for those who may not be. And this is just reinforcement of a reality that we have to live each and every day. Psalms chapter 83. Let's see what it says, right? Again, family, as you're coming on, hit that thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up as you're coming on in. All right, hit that thumbs up. All right. So let's see this. And these are people who are Christians that are partaking in this. That's the sad thing. Christians are partaking in what we're about to read. So it started with ethnic groups and then extended to religious groups. All right, let's read it. O God, do not keep silence. Do not hold your peace or be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make an uproar. Those who hate you have raised their heads. They lay crafty plans against your people. They consult together against your treasured ones. They say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation. When you say that Yah's not dealing with Israel no more, he was the one that formed the nation of Israel, the Most High. People didn't form themselves to become a nation. He formed them to become a nation. So that means you're spitting right in the face of the creator that you claim to serve. Well, most of them serve an egregore, but let's keep reading. They say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation. Let the name of Israel be remembered no more. When you say Israel is going to be cursed perpetually, this is what you're doing. You are breathing life into the scriptures through stark comments like that. For they conspire with one accord against you. They make a covenant against Yah. He's the one that formed Israel. So they inform themselves. Right? Let's see. This is really, man. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 43. We're going to see who put Israel together. Isaiah 43. Right? Isaiah 43. And we're going to read it. Let me share my screen again. All right, here we go. Isaiah 43. But now thus says the Lord, he who created you, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by my name. You are mine. So when you say these things about Israel, guess who you're spiting? Yud He Vav He. I didn't write that. I did not write that. So therefore, understanding that when you speak ill against Israel and you bring to life Psalms 83, you are conspiring just like the other nations did at one point in time to wipe them out as a nation so that their memory can be remembered no more. When Yah says with an everlasting love, let's read that scripture. All right, let's go there. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 1. At that time, declares the Lord, I will be the God of all the clans of Israel, and they shall be my people. Thus says the Lord, the people who survived the sword found grace in the wilderness. When Israel sought for rest, the Lord appeared to him from far away. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have continued my faithfulness to you. Again, I will build you, and you shall be built, O virgin Israel. Again, you shall adorn yourself with tambourines and shall go forth in the dance of the merrymakers. Again, you shall plant vineyards on the mountains of Samaria. The planters shall plant and enjoy their fruit. For there shall be a day when the watchmen will call in the hill country of Ephraim, arise and let us go up to Zion, to the Lord our God. This is in the text. I didn't write this. Okay. And this becomes the issue because now everything they do is agenda based. Shout out to Anonymous Hebrew in the building. Shalom. J Rod. Shalom. Gabar Alaha. Shalom. Jaslyn Berry. Shalom, sis. Right? This is the issue. That's what the text says. Everlasting love, that means it never ceases. Are you saying that there's something in scripture that does away with this? When you say they're not a people no more and you remove their rightful inheritance? I just read your scriptures where Yah's claiming, he said, these are you're mine. I love you. Everlasting love. And then you see the conspiracy that comes behind that because the nations, they hate the fact that Yah has chosen Israel. And it's crazy because there's an allowance for Gentiles to cleave unto Israel. So why hate Israel? You always quote that Genesis 15. You always quote Genesis when it talks about that through your seed, your offspring shall the nations be blessed. You quote that, but yet you hate the offspring. So how do you get blessed? How? Yeshua, Bar Yosef, some of you call Jesus Christ. What nation do you think he came from? You love him, right? You love his apostles, right? Well, they're all Israelites. Huh? What was that? Oh, I thought you said, oh, okay. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Shout out to Katria Ben Israel. Shalom. I see you. What's going on? T Matt Vision. Shalom. Mac hashtag Adolf Lee. Shalom. This is insane. It's insane. But this is the way it is. People do not want to read comprehensively the text. And when you try to walk them through it meticulously and surgically, right? Being very careful where you cut. Very careful where you cut. Because there may be some arteries, you might hit the wrong artery and bleed a person out. So I'm very surgical when I handle people, because the word itself, let's see what the scripture says about the word. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 4. Verse 11, let us therefore strive to enter that rest, so that no one may fall by the same sort of disobedience. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit, of joints and of marrow, and discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And no creature is hidden from his sight, but all are naked and exposed to the eyes of him to whom we must give account. I did not write this. So when I work with people, it's with that double-edged sword, because as they're getting cut by the scripture, it's also cutting me. It keeps me humble. And I try to take my time and walk people through it. But I realize our people are stubborn and thick-headed. People talk all this stuff about white people, but it be their own people who do the worst towards them. And I found some Gentiles of the Caucasian persuasion that have shown more respect and love for the people of Israel than my own people. It's fascinating. But that's part of scripture. There are some that'll be dumb, deaf, and blind. And the Most High told Isaiah, preach to them anyway. That's a tough job, to still preach to those who are deaf, dumb, and blind. Imagine that. Imagine somebody told you have to take care of a person who's deaf, dumb, and blind. That's tough. Because the things you say and the things you do become a witness and a testimony against them. And you ain't got to do it yourself. Moses prayed and said, let heaven and the earth testify against Israel. This is why when you see Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, 18, 19, etc., he invokes heaven and earth. Not one jot or tittle of the law will be done away until all have been fulfilled. And he mentions heaven and earth. Well, he has to mention heaven and earth because Moses invoked heaven and earth to be the witness of the law. It's still here. I mean, that's scripture. All right. Shout out to Vernon, Mickey in the building. I see you. Kenny, shalom. Sister V, love, shalom. What's going on? We can't even get to the deep things because we're still dealing with the things. Let's get into that. Let's get into that, right? And I've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention this again because I think somebody needs this word of encouragement. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. Last verse, okay? You must therefore be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. See this word here? Teleos. So teleos means perfect. Well, it doesn't mean perfect in the sense that we're thinking perfection, right? But before I show you that definition, let me show you something else, right? And we talk about maturity. And unfortunately, a lot of people have not gotten to that point of maturity when they're handling the word, right? Let's go to Hebrews chapter 5 and let's jump all the way down, right? Verse 11. About this, we have much to say, and it is hard to explain since you have become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food. For everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. The word there for mature is the same word as perfect in Matthew chapter 5. But see, here is the issue. When you have or when you rely on the stroke of the translator who decides that a better word to translate this word teleos in Matthew chapter 5, last verse, as perfect, did not see it fit to use the same word here. Now, again, a word can have different connotations based on context. However, this word mature will hold up its weight in Matthew chapter 5 if you understand culturally what that term means to those people. Perfection is maturity. Maturity is through experience. You're able to train yourself to know good from evil, right from wrong. And upon that knowledge, you understand the reason why this is evil is because the consequences are detriment to your livelihood. And if it's good, the consequences are beneficial to your livelihood. And that the Creator has created a guardrail to lead you in the right direction. But some people see the guardrail as being restrictive and want to break past that barrier because they feel it's restricting them. But the whole time it is protecting you from danger. But a lot of people don't know what maturity is. See, when translators are translating with a theological bias and they put the word perfect there, the purpose of that is to show you that you can never obtain what Jesus said that you are to be. If he said you can be it, that means you can be it. But if they put the word perfect there in your mind, it means unspot, unblemished, nobody's perfect, and therefore I can never attain that. So that means it makes his word vain. But when you put the word mature there, and I did a whole lecture on this. Matter of fact, it's on the Patreon. Matter of fact, let me share the link with y'all. I did this lecture years ago. It's on the Patreon, right? I'm going to share it with y'all from the Patreon. You go back and check it out where I go into this. And I explain this because once you look at things from a cultural perspective and not a religious vantage point, things are more obtainable. And that is what the Father wants us to be. He wants us to do what we see in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 11, which I'm going to get in a second, that the word is not too difficult for us. It is nigh unto you. You don't have to send somebody to go seek for it. Oh, that's beautiful. Hold on. This is why when people come on all this esoteric and I'm like, brother, why are you doing all of that? Text is very clear. The word is nigh unto you. It's not difficult, but theological bias in translation can create dogmas to make the word difficult for you. It's fascinating. I'm gonna throw the link up right here. I got it. Here's the link right here. Spiritual infamil. I like that. I like that, Gavin. So an example, just so you can understand of that maturity, that's why it says, be ye mature as your Father in heaven is mature. What does that mean? See, we got to simplify things. Let me show you how things are simplified through scripture, right? Let's go to Proverbs. This is why the Tanakh is not your foundation. You need to put that New Testament down. You don't know what you're dealing with, right? Watch this. It's as simple as a concrete example of a righteous father grooming his son. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. We're going to see what these words are here. It's fascinating when you get into it. This is how you achieve maturity, what is falsely called perfection. See, don't fall for that. That's only going to separate you from Yah and make you feel like this walk is unattainable. I cannot get to that point in my life. That is how Christianity stands on the legs that it stands on, by removing any essence of maturity that you can achieve by superimposing perfect on there. I don't know if y'all see the sleight of hand. It's very interesting. Okay. Proverbs 1 and 8. My son, hear, Shema Beni, Musar Abikha, wa al Tifat Toat. Shema Beni, hear, my son. The word there, hear, Shema, if you look at the diacritic marks, it's an imperative house, then hear, my son. Meaning that you're not saying it intensively, you're saying it with assertion. Hear, my son. Musar, instruction. Abika, of your father. Wa'al, and not tithos, forsake Torah, the law of what? Of your mother. Imeka. Imeka. Your mother. Wait, the law of your mother and the instruction of your father? What does that mean? And I've taught this before. Musar means to discipline, chastening, and correction. You see that? Because that is the father's role to the son. The mother's, you see this word Torah, right? Is in the feminine. The feminine is always abstract. Masculine, I ain't gonna say always. The feminine is abstract. The masculine is concrete. So what the mother does, because of her feminine nature, she gives intuition to the child to lead and guide them so they can stay within the boundaries of discipline and correction of the father, so they may continue to partake in the perfection, the protection, the provision, and the guidance of the father. Because his correction is physical. The mother's her instructions or her teachings of grooming is abstract. She gives the principles, right? And the principles are realized in the physical actions that occur. So when she tells the child, don't do this, or your father would do that, and the child does it, the father disciplines, and then he learns to love the Torah of his mother, and he learns to accept the correction of the father. And that's what's wrong today. What's wrong is that we got so many grown folks that got parents who have wisdom. Because we grown, we feel like we don't want to listen to them. That's not Israelite culture. You're doing yourself a disservice. You think I got this wisdom because I'm some smart guy? I prayed for it, number one. And number two, I soak up from my elders. I repurpose my elders. Repurpose them. When others push them aside, excommunicate them, overlook them, I say, no, that could be repurposed. And in the process of me repurposing them, they pour into me. But I got to empty myself first. No matter how much I know, I act like a fool when I come and listen to the elders. Like I don't know anything. See, we've been so disconnected from our culture and the society in which we live in, it perpetuates that nonsense. So the mother gives her Torah. She gives the child the direction in which to navigate within the boundaries of provision and protection of the father, so that way the child can incline themselves to correction when they overstep those boundaries. That's how simple it is. When you understand the ideal family structure, which is this nation we live in seeks to disrupt and misalign by giving all these liberties and freedoms to do as thou wilt, for thou shalt be the whole of the law. Aleister Crowley. Shirt that Jay-Z had on one time in an interview. Do what thou wilt. My first sermon that I ever did in my life was on that phrase, do what thou wilt. When I was exposing the Satanism in hip hop. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put that on Patreon for y'all to check out. That first lecture I did. So this is why we have to understand the abstract is only as good as the concrete, and the concrete is only as good as the abstract. They work together. What good is having a law of America if there's no enforcement? What good is enforcement if there's no law? Do you understand? So hopefully y'all are following this and we can begin to understand that. Shout out to my brother Shadow God, the Enlightener in the building. Peace and love, King. What's going on? Yo, you've been talking about doing a sequel to that anthem, my brother. Hit me up. right? I'm going to pay you to do that another anthem. So that first one is fire. We got two of them, but that first one is fire. All right? So again, embrace correction. That's why when I teach, I tell people, listen, I'm only telling you what I know to expose what I don't know. The only L I take is learning. I share what I know to expose what I don't know in hopes that somebody who is listening to learn and learning to listen, shout out to Elder Eliyahu who came up with that, who shared that gem with me, can pay attention and say, wow, I see what that brother, he doesn't know. Let me reach out to him and let me inform him. A lot of y'all don't want to be corrected. Correction is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. That's how you learn wisdom, through correction. So all in all, this is maturity. And what happens is when you identify as Israel and you're walking circumspectly in these last days, upright and blameless, guess what? You become a target because you are the very thing that this world hates. And they think they know Yah, but they don't until they see his upright standing people holding that banner of righteousness, standing flat-footed, 10 toes down on his word. That is a threat to these nations, and they cannot see that happen. So they have to cut us off from being a nation, cut off our memory, the remembrance of these people. Because if they rise up and know who they truly are, they will set the standard that we must abide by. So I understand in the grand scheme of things why this is occurring. It's not secret to me, and it's expected. So when I see Christians cutting off the name of Israel, talking all of the smack about Israel, they don't even realize that they are fulfilling prophecies against themselves. They are testifying against themselves, and they are letting the world know who they really are. But the ones that gravitate towards Israel, that cleave unto Israel, that lift Israel up, and that keep Israel accountable to be in a rightful position of responsibility, your ability to respond. When we find out that we have fallen short, we must repent. Shub, we must turn from one direction and be on back to our original destination. That's what we must do. And in the process of doing so, now he can work with us. That requires an emptying of oneself. This is why libations is important. Libations is a remembrance to empty yourself so you can be filled. You can't be filled if you're already filled with something. You can't be filled again. That's why the scripture says to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, body, and soul. Wait, hold on. The second scripture says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. But wait, how can you love your neighbor if you love everything that you have in you towards God? Well, loving him means emptying yourself so you could be the vessel that he can fill. And through the overflow of him in you, you can then love your neighbor. Because the love that you have for your neighbor, the agapao love, is not coming from you as the source, the sarx, the flesh. There's a spirit involved in that. You can't love your neighbor as you love yourself if you don't know how Yah has once loved you and will continue to love you through your obedience. Okay. All right. So let me back down from that. Let me go into transition. I just wanted to talk to somebody out there. Somebody needed to hear this, and I hope I'm inspiring you. Whenever you face the persecution and adversity of those who are trying to cut off your name, telling you your identity does not matter. See, that's how we got here in the first place, because they told you your identity did not matter. That's why they label you as black, label you as brown. Even white people label them as white. What is that? That's not an identity. That is a legalized descriptive term that places you in a class system. That does not give no detail to anything about you and who you are. And if you accept that, then that goes to show you don't care who you are. You're in love with a concept. That's it. It's not an actuality. All right. Shout out to Eric Tinsley in the building. I see you. Shalom, remnant. Call a royal priesthood. Shalom. Let me see. Is that everybody? Tierra Lloyd, I see you, sis. Shalom, chosen one. Okay, I see what you posted. And thank you for the donation, by the way. I appreciate that. You said, what's your opinion on the Enoch calendar and did the Israelites follow it? Okay. So I've taught on this before, but I don't mind reinforcing it. But what I will do for you, chosen, if you really want to get heavy into the subject matter, I'm going to share a playlist with you where I discuss matters about the calendar and I go in detail, right? I go in detail in regards to the Enochian calendar, right? So I'm going to share that with you. Let me see if I can pull it up. Where is it at? Well, I don't see it. Okay, here it is. I'm going to drop this in the chat in case anybody else is interested in it. Shout out to Ernest Higgs in the building. I see you. Shalom. Again, make sure you guys are sharing the video. Share the video, please. So no matter what YouTube formed against us, it will not prosper. Whatever YouTube forms against us, it will not prosper. All right, so I shared the link there, the Enochian calendar. I'll sum it up for you, but then I'm gonna charge you with homework. So to sum it up, when I was in the process of reconstructing, that's the key word. I didn't make nothing from scratch. I was reconstructing what the ancient pre-exilic Israelite sacerdotal menological model is. What does that mean? So you're saying too many deep words. Divine ancient means past. Pre-exilic means before they went into exile. Sacerdotal means priestly. Menological means months, the studying of months. Model is a reckoning of time in which they followed, right? When I was in the process of reconstructing that, I had to first address all the present paradigms that existed to see if they fit the bill of the pre-exilic model. I myself once used to follow the same calendar of the Jews today, Orthodox Judaism. And then after that transition, I started to follow the Enochian calendar until I was charged with reassessing everything and considering other things. So there were three things that I was able to develop to kind of figure out this thing. And each one of the pre-existing calendrical models falls short of these three things. The first thing is, number one, where in scripture, when I say scripture, I'm talking about the Tanakh, the canon of the Tanakh, right? Does a calendrical system give liberty to intercalation? What does intercalation mean? Intercalation is when you have to add days to a calendrical model so it can keep up with the seasons. So when certain events occur on that calendar, they're in alignment with the appropriate season in which they're supposed to occur. For example, if your Passover ends up in the wintertime, that's problematic. Why? Because the barley and the wheat that you need to give for first fruits is not going to be ripe. It's not going to be green in the air. So when it's green in the air, transition into a brown, when it tends to get harder, the husks get harder, and it's ripe for harvest, that goes in alignment with the other feast days. So if you're out of alignment with that, something's problematic. And if you have to add time to it, guess what? There's no instructions for that in Torah at all. None. There's no instructions. That's number one. Number two, the second thing is, as far as the moon phase, should it be dark? Should it be crescent, FVC, or should it be full? The text is not explicit except for one passage, which is Psalms 81 and 3. And even the word there is not even use the word moon, yariach or yarach. It's using the term what we call kisu. That comes from a Syrian loan word that goes back to the word kusu or agu. And that goes back to a coronation ceremony with a lapis lazuli crown that is placed during that coronation ceremony of the king. And the sight of all the people, in which the lapis lazuli crown, which is a rich royal blue composite element, reflects the light of the sun for all to see, because he is being placed in that position by the moon god. Gets deep. I share all that in that playlist up there, so you can check it out. The third thing is the naming schemes. What are the names of the months? Well, when I read the book of Shemot or Exodus, I see the word Aviv there, right? Or Abib. And then when I go into the book of 1 Kings chapter 6, I see the other words there, Ethanim, Bull, and then I see Ziv also in the book of 1 Kings. So I see 4 names for 4 months, which is Abib first month, Ziv second month, Ethanim, Abib first month, Ziv the second month, Ethanim the 7th month, and Bull the 8th month. Everything else is month 3, month 4, month 5, month 6. And then the calendrical model they had at that time only consisted of 8 months, the sacerdotal or the priestly reckoning of time that's used in order for us to calculate the feast days. It only used 8 months. That's why there's no intercalation. You don't need intercalation if it's only 8 months. Now, if you go to a civil calendar, like we have the Gezer calendar, that's 12 months. And that's based on what we call a farmer's almanac of reaping and sowing crops. Hopefully you're following what I'm saying. And that actual Enochian calendar, we call Enochian calendar from the book of Enoch. If you go to the calendrical text of Qumran, you'll see that there were multiple groups that lived in those caves, not one monolithic group, multiple groups that lived in those caves, and each one of them abandoned the calendrical system that came from the book of Enoch because it wasn't practical. And we see what I mean. That means you shift a day and a quarter every year. You shift back. You recess in time to the point where after about 30 years, you'll be having your Passover in the wintertime. Like you'll be doing Passover in the wintertime. That's problematic. When Yeshua says, pray that your flight not be on the Sabbath or in the wintertime, because during the wintertime, people stay put. During the wintertime. Well, that means that if men are supposed to appear before the Most High 3 times out of the year for their Hug, or what we call in Arabic, their Hajj or Hagag, if they're supposed to do that, well, wintertime, you stay put. There's no pilgrimage feast during the wintertime. So it could not have been consistent with the pre-exilic model. It becomes problematic. So you said, shout out to Sean McGee in the building. Shout out to Yeti Ibri Dre. I see you, King. What's going on? David Israel, you says, oh yeah, okay. I'm not gonna forget you, my brother. Let me get back to you. Thank you for reminding me. So let me answer this question and I'll get back to you, David. So you says, when it comes to the pre-exilic calendar, am I right in saying that the priests calculate the day according to evening to evening? I would say no. So when we say evening to evening, we got to be specific about that. Yom Kippur is the only, and it's not even a feast day because you don't feast on that day. It's the only Moedim, annual gathering days, where Leviticus 16 takes place. And what we do in Deuteronomy 16, Leviticus 23 is in conjunction. Well, not Deuteronomy 16, but Leviticus 23 is in conjunction with that. Right? You afflict your soul. That is the only one that's from evening to evening explicitly. You have between the evenings mentioned, but from evening to evening, these are 2 different phrases. They're not the same phrase. And it's there for a reason. Pasach is between the evenings. The evening that ushers in Pasach all the way into the consummating evening that goes into the first day of unleavened bread. The Passover is slain during that period of time, mostly during the time of what we call the twilight hours, transition from day to night. So the only evening to evening calculated of the Moedim is Yom Kippur. Right? Everything else was a little bit different. So when we say evening to evening, We must define what we mean even to evening. When we say a day has 24 hours, which we know is a complete cycle. Same thing when we have with a synodic month, right? There's 24 hours. But day will be when work began, when you can see outside. During what we call is 3 phases of twilight, right? You have your astronomical twilight, you have your nautical twilight, and you have your civil twilight. So when you're going from day to night, you're in your civil twilight, which means it's getting dark, but there's enough light to continue work. Nautical twilight is dark. You can't get no work done. However, this is the best time of the evening to see the stars and use it for navigation. Hence why it's called nautical, because sailors on the waters, this is what they would use to navigate or start their navigation during this period of time. And then you have your astronomical twilight, where it is almost completely dark and no work can be done. And then it ushers into your finite darkness until that is consummated by the opposite effect, right? Your finite darkness goes from astronomical to nautical to civil twilight. But when you are dealing on Yom Kippur, it is a full evening to evening, irrespective of how the days are counted, what we call business hours. They had business days back then, sunrise to sunset. That was for the laymen. That was part of their civil calendar. But the priests, like the brother said, did they work or calculate things even to evening? It depends on the type of work that they had to do. And we see this more specifically of what we call Yom Kippur. Let's get that in Leviticus chapter 23. Let me pull it up. Leviticus 23. All right, I'm going to jump down to verse 26. And it says, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, now on the 10th day of the 7th month is the day of atonement. It shall be for you a time of holy convocation, and you shall afflict yourselves and present a food offering to the Lord. And you shall not do any work on that very day, for it is a day of atonement, to make atonement for you before the Lord your God. For whoever is not afflicted on that day shall be cut off from his people, and whoever does any work on that day, and that very day, that person I will destroy from among his people. It says, you shall not do any work. It is a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwelling places. It shall be to you a Shabbat of solemn rest, and you shall afflict yourselves. On the 9th day of the month, beginning at evening, from evening to evening, you shall keep your Shabbat, because it is during that period of time that the work is being performed by the priests that we see in Leviticus chapter 16. Very fascinating, which says, La Chodesh Be'areb. It says, Be at evening. Be, this be is prepositional be because it's attached or prefix to the word. Ba, right? You have the dagesh in the middle, so it's a hard ba, plosive ba. Ba, your ayin gets its value from the your resh, value from the ba ereb. So at evening, right? This little divider here, it's my kef. This is your divider here. This means this is one clause, right? And then you have your me'ereb, from evening. Ad is a prepositional meaning to or towards. Ereb, so from evening to evening, you shall celebrate, it says, your Shabbat, your Sabbath Tekhem, right? Your Tisbetu Shabbat Tekhem. Shabbat, hard T, Tekhem, right? So, at evening, on the 9th day, at evening, Bareb, from evening to evening. The reason why that's highlighted is because that's something distinct that is going on in regards to a Shabbat, because your normal Shabbat is from sunrise to sunset, but this Shabbat is from sunset, from sunset to sunset. So from that period of time, it's different and it stands out. When we go up a little further to Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 4, or 4 and 5, let me read that. These are the appointed feasts of the Lord, the holy convocations which you shall proclaim at the time appointed for them. Verse 5, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at twilight, is the Lord's Passover, right? So the Passover is during this period of twilight. Well, that literally means between the two evenings. The day between the two evenings is Passover because it's work that you do that day, getting that animal right for slaughter, transitioning into the evening. Okay, so your meal can be done by the time the evening hits so that you're eating your unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Okay. All right. So I'm hold off on that. Let me jump back to the brother David. Let me go to his question. He gave a very, very great question. I think it was really good. I'm gonna see if I can find it and highlight it again. Where's it at? Where's it at? Oh, and make sure you stay tuned for Freestyle Friday tomorrow, because that brother that was on here on Tuesday, hopefully he comes through and we can dive into this Trinity thing. Got some stuff I need to share with that brother. Hopefully he shows up. Right. So let me see if I can find your comment, David. Can you repost it? Shout out to Keenan Clayton Jr. in the building. Shalom, King. Can you repost that? Can you repost that, my brother? I'm looking for it. Let me see if I can find it. Can you repost your question again, David? So sister, you said how many watches were there? You talking about night watches, and where a particular Roman guard was on post until the next shift comes in? There was 4 of them. 4. Hopefully that answers your question. Jungle ship, yes, the Trinity. But he said he don't call it the Trinity. But in essence, he's preaching the Trinity. Go back to this Tuesday's, the past live stream I did. You'll see the brother on there sharing that. I got him a little stuck when he says that the spirit is called Yahweh. I'm like, I don't see that. He got a little stuck on that, but let's see how he fares. Maybe he may do better. We'll see. Shadow, that sounds dope. That's tough. Let's do that. Okay, so the question you said, how does one still hold on to theology? Very, very interesting you use that term when they know the academic side of the Bible. Okay, so theology and academia. I think I know what you're talking about. So theology leads to religion, right? Academia leads you to culture. Now you're gonna say, what are you talking about, Divine? All right, let me show you this, right? So you can understand what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying academia is exclusively about culture, but it leads you to culture because it critically analyzes the theological perspective laid on top of the text when there are other elements that theology does not leave room for. So the reason why I use an academic methodology to discern what I'm seeing in the text, not saying that's the only thing that I do. Obviously, I pray about it and I seek Yah's guidance before I do it, is because there's so much dogma stifling our interpretation of the text. So much of it. So much of it. And people get mad when we dogma bust on here. They don't like that. But it's the truth. I just show people the origin of things, and I filter through all the white noise, and I give you clarity so you can see what frequency is being conveyed from the text. But we got to get away from the white noise. Too much white noise. So when you use an academic methodology, the reason why I use it is because guess what? I didn't live 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And the information that would help me get insight into that way of life back then, gatekeepers in academia have them. And they use, not only do they have the data, they use a methodology to parse through that data. So they know how to read and comprehend the data. So I take the data that they have in the methodology, not their interpretation, and I use it so I can get an objective perspective on what the text is conveying, sans the theological layering and superimposition onto the text. Because that will drive you to presuppositions or preconceived notions that you already accept to be true unchallenged because somebody has taught it to you or you just believe it to be true. And when you come under scrutiny, you're going to do one of a few things if you don't stand on something that's firm. Either one, you're going to outrightly dismiss it. Number two, you're going to automatically demonize it. Or number three, cognitive dissonance will kick in. You're going to fight with it and you will yield to it. Those are only three things that can happen. You can dismiss it, you can demonize it, or you can yield to it. And that's the truth. Jungle Ship, give me the scripture for that and we can address that. Okay. So, my brother Aban Banawa Hawa Shanawa says, real quick, Malak, is the normal Shabbat morning to sunset. The morning Shabbat is from Boker, during that twilight hours, what we call the morning, into sunset, which is Ereb, the evening, right? So from morning to evening, that is a business day in the ancient Near East, because that is when civil duties commence outside, when the glimmer of light is first dawning during the civil twilight period until the civil twilight period of that evening. So that is a business day. That is when workers commence. You're going to say, prove that to me, Moray. Okay, well, if you want to call me Moray, that's fine. If you want to call me Malak, that's fine. Let me give you scriptural proof of that. So hopefully, David, I answered that question. Once you get into the methodology we use here to discern the intentions that the text is conveying to us, what the immediate audience were the recipient of from the author or the speaker within the cultural, historical, and linguistic context in which it was said and conveyed, you use an academic methodology to parse through all the fluff and get right succinctly to that point. Once you use that method to discern the text, theology just becomes a second nature. Excuse me, tertiary. I didn't mean second nature. It becomes tertiary. That means it's something that you then later say, okay, I'll deal with the theological framework, but the culture already dictates spiritually what I need to listen to, what I need to obey, what I need to follow, because that's my inheritance. It doesn't have to be taught to me from somebody else. It is nigh unto me. All somebody has to do is reveal it to me. But let me get it for you in Exodus 16 so we can deal with that Sabbath and we can move from there. So the Bible me says, got a question, Ak, when did Christ rise from the sepulchre? He rose on the Shabbat. And he was discovered in the morning the next day. That's when he was discovered. The morning time of that Sunday, that first day of the week, because they did not go to the tombs during Shabbat. They stayed away from the tombs during the Shabbat. That's why they had to bury him quick before that time period came. They had to get him down before a high Shabbat, which would be when one of these feast days fall during the week, and we have to rest on that day where no work can be done. So if that is coming up, they have to put him in the grave. You can't stay up there because it will be a curse to all the people. If you hang somebody on the tree and do not take the body down by evening, specifically if it's a what they call a high holy day or a day of rest that falls within the week, right? But let me get Exodus 16 real quick. I see some people dropping off, maybe because this truth it's a hard pill to swallow. I understand. Could be late, right? People got to work tomorrow. I understand. We're going to wrap this up soon. Or it could just be that some people are bothered by the information, and it's okay. It'll bother you at first. You may not understand or comprehend it at first, but give it some time and let it settle. Let it settle, and it'll be an acquired taste. The truth is an acquired taste. You got to train your thought. Remember we read that earlier, to discern good from evil. You got to train yourself. The truth is an acquired taste. Everybody's not going to like it. But the ones that do like it is because they've allowed it to train them to receive it, to absorb it, to allow it to correct them and edify them and inspire them at the same time. So let's get Exodus chapter 16. This all has to do with the quail and the manna and the time of the day in which you collect the manna. Okay, because that is considered the work period where they're supposed to rest from. So let's get Exodus chapter 16 and let's dive into it real quick. All right. So here we go. Verse 4, then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day. So check it out. A day portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. So the day portion every day. We're going to see what does that consist of, okay? On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily, right? So Moses and Aaron said to the people of Israel, at evening you will know that it was the Lord that brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against the Lord. For what are we that we grumble against us? And Moses said, when the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. See that? The evening was the meat and the morning was the bread. And what are these words for evening and morning there? I just went over this a few minutes ago. And he says, the evening is ba'areb, at evening, basar le'ekol, to eat, meat to eat, welechem, and bread, bab boker, and in the morning. See that? Boker is your morning, and then Ereb is your evening. But we're going to get a little bit more detail on what that is, right? So we jump down. Let's go to verse 13. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp, and in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is this? For they did not know what it is. And Moses said to them, it is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord commanded. Gather of it, each of you, as much as he can eat. You shall each take an omer according to the number of the persons that each of you has in his tent. And the people of Israel did so. They gathered some more, some less, right? Now watch this. Let's jump down, right? Verse 19. And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over till the morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Watch this, verse 21. Morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. So what point of the day does the sun grow hot in that region of the world? From noon to 3 p.m. And that period of time changes depending upon what time of the year it is. You see that? So they were to get it every morning, because by the time the sun grew the hottest, it melted and dissipated. So when you go down to verse 22, on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. Remember, this is about the Shabbat. It has to do with collecting bread during the daytime. At night was the quail for meat. That is not reckoned when looking at the Shabbat period of rest. The Sabbath is the 7th day of the week. The day consists of 24 hours, but the Shabbaton, the on suffix is the diminutive, which means a smaller or endearing part of something. So within the Sabbath, which is the 7th day of the week, which is the 24-hour cycle, there is a smaller portion within that period of time in which rest is done, and it's akin to the collection of manna on the 6th day of the week, where you double it, because on the 7th day, the collection, you cannot get it, and it must be collected before the sun waxes the hottest, because at that point in time, it will not be good for you to collect. So these things are important in order to reconcile what is a civil workday in the ancient Near East, more specifically in Israel. It is from sunrise to sunset, because the morning time connected to the collection of the manna to when the sun waxes the hottest. This is all connected to the period of rest that they are to do on that 7th day. Verse 30. So the people rested on the seventh day. Let's read the verse before that, right? See, therefore, or see, the Lord has given you the Shabbat. Therefore, on the sixth day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remember, the bread or the manna is to be collected in the morning time until the sun waxes the hottest. And on the seventh day, you rest from collecting that manna, which is during that period of time. And that equates to your Shabbaton. That's what that is talking about. And it gets a little further when we look at other scriptures and passages on it. But hopefully that is very clear and to the point. Okay. Okay, so you're talking about Yom Kippur? Abanawa? Are you talking about Yom Kippur? Shout out to Leon Farlow in the building. Shalom King, what's going on? Okay, so Battle Axe, you said the actual Sabbath. Yes, so the Sabbath being representing the seventh cycle of day and night, or night and day during the week, is the seventh of those cycles, right? But in that period of time is a smaller Shabbaton, and that is the period when you rest from your laborious work or your civil work. And that is during the period of time when the Israelites were to collect the manna, because he says in verse 4, I'm doing this to test them to see if they keep my law. And that is the law of the Shabbat. So that explains it. So if we establish that that is the Shabbat where we rest, but Day of Atonement says evening to evening, now we must consider resting the whole evening to evening, not just that small period of time, but the entire evening to evening. Remember I said, when the sun waxes the hottest, is from 12 to 3 p.m. at that point in time in the world. And you'll see it shifts also here in America, because people that's on California, as opposed to people here in Georgia, we're on 2 different time zones. So 12 to 3 here is going to be different from 12 to 3 there. So 12 to 3 there is where it's going to wax the hottest. 12 to 3 here is going to wax the hottest. However, there's a 3-hour differential between these two time zones. That's important. And again, this is stuff that people overlook in the text. Why is the text specifying when the sun waxes hot? This is astronomy. That's why you got to research astronomy. That's correct, V Brand. That's correct. So the Sabbath is the seventh day of the week that consists of 24 hours from evening to evening. But the period of rest is from the break of day during civil twilight until when the sun waxes the hottest. That small period of time is the Shabbat. And that small period of time in regards to what the sun waxing the hottest, relatively speaking, based on the fact that they had a relative way of reckoning time, means that it will change from season to season. So that means during the summertime, when the sun waxes hot, it's going to be different than the winter time when the sun waxes the hottest. You see, we have an absolute reckoning of time and an absolute calendar that disregards us being in touch with the environment. That is not what they had back then. This is important. On the Patreon, I got 5 books that deal with calendrical systems, and they all testify to this. It was a relative dating system. It was dating based on natural occurrences and concrete events that would occur in the lifespan of those people. Absolute dating is our abstract calendar that disregards all of that. That's why the calendrical system that you follow will dictate who you worship. That's why the Gregorian calendar today had to be corrected for Easter. Because it is a Haleg day, it is a rest day or a Shabbat day in the secular, pious, religious world of Christendom. And when you partake of that, that is who is in control of your circadian rhythm and the biological clock that is built into every cell in your body. It will affect the melatonin that's distributed in your body, because your pineal gland is responsible for your day-night cycle, as well as helping to release the hormone melatonin. And when their day began at evening and consummated the next evening, that's not how we start our day here. Our day begins at midnight and consummates the next midnight, and it is fixed. But there's change because during the wintertime, you will have shorter days and longer nights. That means you work less and you rest more during the wintertime. It's almost a form of hibernation for man during the wintertime. But during the summertime, you have longer days and shorter nights, which means you work more in the summer than you rest in the summer because it's relative and their reckoning of time was their environment. They didn't have the calendars that we're using today. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, my brother. Get Wise for the donation. I appreciate that. King, culture, community, autonomy, hashtag death to dogma. Okay. All right. So you said, so the work was commanded to cease Friday evening, battle axe. I'm not sure what you're saying there. Felipe flag 2. You gave Genesis 1:15. Yes, I hear you, Felipe. Gotcha. So battle axe, you referring to Exodus 16:23, and see that ye will seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. Yes, you can work in preparation. That evening, what we call Friday evening, going into Saturday, they worked all the way up until morning because when the morning time hits, you cease from your labors. You cannot work no more. You cannot prepare no more. You can't do no work because work was restricted to indoors because of the lack of artificial light in the ancient Near East. The only artificial light you had was a torch. People restricted work to indoors and they prepared that evening up until the morning time where they had to stop any kind of work, whether it's restricted indoors or not. That's how it works. So yes, the 24-hour period does begin in the evening. I got you. But when that daytime hit, all work ceases. Even indoor preparation for that Shabbat must cease, according to scripture. Yes, that's how my head was. Pause. When I discovered this information, it was blown. I was like, oh man, that's interesting. Yes, that's correct, Nazarene. Because that phrase, let me go back to that phrase because that's a fascinating phrase. When people talk about the Shabbat, I rarely hear them mention verse 21. Let me go to verse 21 again. It's very fascinating. Exodus 16, verse 21. And it says, morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted, meaning that you cannot collect it or gather it because when the sun waxes the hottest, it melts. There's nothing for you to gather, which means you had a limited period of time that you must put maximum amount of work in. And you start to taper off once the sun starts to decline at its hottest zenith in the sky. I rarely ever see anybody factor in, but when the sun grew hot, it melted. Stacks, yeah, we New Yorkers, you know how we get down. But yeah, but that's the truth. When I went through this passage, I went through each and every word in Hebrew, in English, and then in Hebrew. And then I went into the Septuagint. And then I went into the Syriac by way of the Peshitta. And it blew my mind. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, but that's the truth. And again, this is something that because of religious dogma, you don't see this. You don't see it. But when you take that academic methodology, you fine tooth comb through everything, and you leave theology at the door. You check in and you fine tooth comb all the information, and you sort through it, you parse through it, and you reconstruct it and say, oh, see, if I kept that religious presupposition, I would have never seen that. I would have been fighting so hard based on what I believe to be true because what I've heard, what I've read, or what I was taught. But we'll see that with these high context cultures, such as the ancient recent cultures, they give you every detail you need. See, we in the West, we need more information because we live in a low context culture. And I went over this before, and I also put a nice little chart and everything on the Patreon. But when they're speaking, somebody that's living in that day, a recipient of Moses's words to the immediate audience, they are all living in the same biosphere together, same ecological environment. They see in the same events occur together as a collective. And because they lived during that time period, they knew absolutely what it means when the sun grows hot. But we missed that. I agree, Nazarene. And shout out to you, by the way, my brother. That's a really bright brother right there. I like the way that he goes over the content and he gives critical analysis and everything. Great contributions you've given to this channel, my brother, and I do appreciate you. Not saying nobody else hasn't either, but I know that brother takes his time and he does that. So much respect to you, King. All right. Yes. Now, listen to what I'm saying now. When the sun grew hot, they can no longer gather the manna. Okay. So that period of time, depending on what time of the year it is, typically ranges from 12 to 3 p.m. You can look this up. Matter of fact, let me get it for you. Now watch this. Let me show you this. Right? This is from a website called almanac.com. Right? Excellent website for those of you who are into farming and gardening and all that fun stuff, right? I want to show you something which it says, right? Because this will mess up your head when you see this, right? But look with it. This is the question and answer. And it says, what is the hottest time of the day, 3 p.m. or noon? The answer, the hottest time is around 3 p.m. Heat continues building up after noon when the sun is its highest in the sky, as long as more heat is arriving at the earth than leaving. By 3 p.m. or so, the sun is low enough in the sky for outgoing heat to be greater than incoming. Sometimes the hottest time is earlier because a weather system moves in with cool air early in the day. So this all has to do with the weather systems, right? Meteorological forecasts and the region in which you live in regards to the wind and where the wind is blowing. And if you live between mountains, if you live in a valley, if you live on a hilltop, all of this will shift and change that. But on average, the hottest point of the day is 3 p.m. So technically, 3 p.m. is the cutoff time for labor. As the incoming heat and outgoing heat has their relational dynamic, whenever you see a shift in the two, then you know that the sun is waxing hot, and then it's waxing. Well, the sun doesn't wax cooler, but we feel as the heat is outgoing, we feel it cooling off. It's the zenith, when the sun is in its zenith. And that varies again based on your location. So the homework I will give you is go back, research Israel today, find out when is the sun at its highest zenith at what times during the year. And your mind will be blown. But like I said, on an average, it's 3 p.m. So now when people look at this, you're thinking, oh man, the Shabbat is 6 p.m. Well, the text never says it's 6 p.m. But some people, they follow that. I know where that comes from, but that's dogma. But people follow that, right? It's not in scripture, but people follow it. But when it says when the sun waxes the hottest, that is giving you a clue or a cue to go back and research. Well, when is the sun wax the hottest in ancient Israel? When does that happen? And then now you say, oh, 3 p.m. So technically, when civil twilight is outside all the way to 3 p.m., that is when you're to have your Shabbat. Historically, according to Exodus 16. I'm telling you, some of y'all, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow. I'm just telling you what the scripture says. I didn't make this up. I didn't put that in the text. That's what it says. I mean, you can't get mad at me. I'm just reading what's there. I don't think because the manna melted at 2 p.m. that automatically means that the something begins Friday at 2 p.m. I don't know what you mean by that. We're talking about when that period of work, that's what we're talking about, the period of time in which you work. Remember, working in Exodus 16, the first passage that actually dives into the Shabbat, before we get Exodus 20, is outlining this as a law. And it's based on the gathering of manna during the day. So that day period in which the gathering is done or work is to be had, because in ancient Near East, you have to work to eat. That's when Paul says, if a man don't work, he don't eat. Y'all think of something abstract. No, literally, you had to work to eat every day. Preparation of food was laborious every day. It took hours to make bread. And y'all just go right to the bodega and get your loaf of bread. Y'all got it easy, man. So when the manna melts, when the sun is at its zenith, you can no longer gather it. That means you're not working no more. There's no more work to be done. You are to gather as much as you can from that period of time of civil twilight to when the sun waxes the hottest, and then you rest. That is their work period at that time. Like I said, people always overlook this and they never incorporate this when it comes to reckoning the Sabbath, because dogma will have you overlook this and see it as inconsequential. But if it was inconsequential, it wouldn't be there. So having your Western mind the way it is, or your presuppositional dogma, you'll continue to say, oh, no, that's not true, even when you're looking at the text and it says, when the sun waxes hot, it melted. That means they can't gather. Remember, the word is gather. They can't gather it no more when the sun waxes the hottest. That means work ceases. That means you got everything you have, and that's it. So on that seventh day, during that period of time that you would normally go out and gather it, you're resting. That's all. Facts, Nazarene. You're right. All right. Does anybody have any more questions before I close out? Any additional questions? Again, we still have our Freestyle Friday. Well, today, because today's Friday now. We still have a Freestyle Friday. So if you have another question, let me know. Anybody else got a question? Battle axe. The people work because over time, by the time we get to Nehemiah's day, we have what's called post-exilic Israel. This is after they've come from exile, Babylonian exile, and return. So things have shifted. Okay. That time of Ezra, Nehemiah is a totally different period of time. I've shared this on here before, and I'll give the source at another time. So what happened is people extended the period of work. Over time, this is what they did to get the most out of the day. But guess where they was at prior to coming to Nehemiah's time? They was in Babylon. You have to study Babylonian culture. It's different than what we read from the scriptures. There's some similarities there and there's some differences. One thing is the reconciling of a Sabbath day. They would work and they would despise the Sabbath because they had to work. Israelite culture, they would work and they would love the Sabbath because they get to rest. See, every minute and every hour that you cease to work, that's the less amount of revenue and income that you have in that time. But the purpose of that is so you can rely on the sustenance and provisions of the Creator. The other nations, it was in their own actions. their own works. But when your reliance is on the Most High, you ain't got to work that much. And remember what I said, it all depends on what part of Israel you're in, what day of the year it is, because of relative dating. That's all. Fire of God, Hebrew Israelites, Shalom. What's going on, King? Man, it was crazy. Matter of fact, I may even record it and post it for y'all, because this brother, I don't know. And shout out to the brother Star Power TV, but he was, I don't know where he was at, what he was saying. It was just, man. So logic. So you're saying from civil twilight to 3 p.m. when the sun waxes the hottest after everything's melted, you said we won't be able to get nothing done, let alone a job with that logic. My brother, you can continue to work while it is day. Are you messianic? You know, Yeshua, Jesus say that we must work while it is day. But the nighttime comes when no man can work. Remember that? So if you choose to continue to work, that's your period of time. All I'm doing for you, my brother, and see, this is what you're doing, my brother. This is the problem, right? You're cross-pollinating things. Okay. I'm telling you something that happened historically. So during that period of time, this is how the Shabbat was reckoned, based on their livelihoods that needed to be maintained and their lifestyles and their full reliance on the land and in the Creator. Today, things are much different. During the time of Nehemiah's time, things are much different. They're no longer sovereign. They've been influenced by the stains of Babylon and Zoroastrianism, which is another conversation. And Babylon, they're taught to work all the way into the brink of evening, because their sustenance comes from their own hands. Ours comes from the Creator. It's a difference. So if you want to cross-pollinate the two, that's totally up to you, right? I'm just showing you historically, according to Exodus 16, this was the pre-exilic way to do it. Now, that may not work for you today, and that's fine. If you want to extend it into the evening, my brother, you're more than happy to do that. Who am I to tell you can't do that? I'm just showing you what the text says. So my question to you, Battle Axe, is this, my brother. A shout out to you, my brother. My question to you is this. When the text says they gathered, matter of fact, let me put it back on the screen. And I see, thank you, Rose of Ma'afa. I'll give you a nice little source on that. Give me 1 second. And thank you, Ernest Higgs, for your donation, right? Anytime, King. But let me address that for you, right? Yes. So, my brother, remember Exodus 16, verse 4. Okay. That's the important thing, meaning that a precedent was established as a model to follow going forward. An archetype was formed. Do you understand? So, even after we stop eating manna, the archetype was already formed in which we are to follow. It's already there. Do you understand? He used the manna as a means of establishing that, because of their grumbling and complaining. He was trying to show them to rely on him and to follow his instructions, which we have a hard time with doing today. I know, right? With that being said, my question to you, right? Fire of God, no, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. I wanted to wash him up, but he had gone by the time I was on there. It was the brother Star Power TV that I was going back and forth of. Now, Golden, him and Star Power got washed up the day before or 2 days before. I'm not sure. And that's the one that I'm going to put on YouTube. You guys will see that this weekend. But this past like couple of hours ago, it was Star Power TV. And I'll grab that too and throw it up there if you're interested in hearing it. Okay. But my question for you, Battle Axe, is this, right? And then after this, I'm going to go into Rosa Ma'afa's question. Okay. Now, and what I'm going to do, I'm not even going to answer his question directly. I'm just going to give him sources. No source, sir. That's a question. Well, Rose of Ma'afa, what we do here is we don't just take the opinion of the speaker. We go to a source. Okay. So if you don't want that, I don't know what to tell you. I have no clue what to tell you. Matter of fact, in the realm of the HOK, House of Consciousness, Brother Garfield is debating Brother Jabari on that very subject matter. And Brother Jabari is wrong. Brother Garfield is right. Because this is not argued in academia. This is only argued on these peanut gallery circles. It's not argued in academia. The consensus has already been established. He is a historical person. There's no, the only people that debate it is the small minority that have an agenda outside of what the consensus has established. So, and that's fine. If you want to be part of that minority, that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some homework to read. If you want to know the historical case for that, I'm going to give you the sources, okay? Before that, I just want Battle Axe to please answer this question, right? And thank you for the donation, by the way, Rose. And again, this is how we work here. We work based on sources. That's how we operate. Not by opinion. I'm going to give you sources. We have 3 prominent historians that attest to this. And on top of that, we also have contemporary accounts of people associated with this individual. Now, again, you got to remember, being able to chronicle the livelihood of somebody who is a commoner from the hood is very unlikely. We'll have more. You said, please, no source. Well, I don't know what to tell you, Rose. That's how we work here. A commoner in Nazareth. Nazareth is equivalent to a project or hood in America. You have a person coming from out of there who is not royalty, who is not nobility, who is illiterate. His associates is illiterate. And you think that there's going to be a play-by-play by a famous historian contemporary to that time of a commoner from the hood? The earliest accounts you're going to get is from the earliest witnesses. And those are the ones who have seen this individual and have attested to it based on what they've established through orality. And then later on, as the movement began to grow, further investigation is done by historians, noted historians, several of them, 3. And then they begin to do an analysis either in passing or explicitly acknowledging the historical existence of this person and what occurred to him. And we also have a witness from the Talmud that also attests to Yeshu, and what occurred to Yeshu. That's another existential witness outside of those 3 historians, prominent historians. And the reason why I'm speaking obscurely like this is because I want people to research. Don't take my word for anything. I don't know anything. I'm just talking here. Seth, of course, is weird. People say no source. If you study the subject extensively, then why are you asking me, my brother? Why are you here to ask me this? When people ask me a question, I give them a summary and then I give them homework. That's like you going to school or college and say, oh, no, I'm not going to do the work outside of that. I'm not going to do none of that. So then why are you here? Trying to understand. Stack says somebody ran down on you in Walmart. Oh, man, this is funny. So this is what I'm going to do for you, okay? Roles of Ma'afa. And this is the thing that I want to make clear to the audience, right? We don't run from any challenges. We don't run from any inquiries. We don't run from any questions. If I was running from this, I wouldn't highlight what he's saying here. You see what he says right there? I implore y'all to go back and research it. Let's go up, right? This is what he's saying. He says no source because he studied extensively. Well, my brother, this is not a one-on-one conversation. There's an audience there. So you're not factoring the audience. If you're not going to do that and you're neglecting the audience, my brother, this is going to be very difficult. Maybe you should schedule an appointment with me in the description below, and you can talk to me one-on-one, and we can go back and forth on that. But when there's an audience, we're speaking for their edification. And when you tell me no source, then you're not familiar with how things operate around here, my brother. You're just not. And then he says, what is your best evidence for the historical Jesus? So aside from the consensus, which the sources I will provide you has that evidence, I already gave you a summary. It is for you to go back and do the homework, so you got to believe what I say. That's it. So I'm highlighting everything he's saying so that people can go back to research because, again, we're not afraid of any questions here. We welcome questions, my brother. Okay, this is what you're saying, my brother. There is no Nazareth attested in contemporary sources. Okay. Thank you for the donation. Rose, you don't have to give donations for me to acknowledge your question. I see it, but I appreciate that because it's very important to you to highlight the points that you want to make, and that's fine. You start out with a question, then you tell me don't give you no sources because you studied it extensively, and then you begin to then teach us stuff. So what's going on here? You're not asking me a question. Sincerely, you want to teach. Well, if you want to teach it, make a video, right? And put it out there and people will go back and they'll watch your video. Just make the video. There's tons of people that have existed historically that we have little to no evidence for. But I digress. Let me give the sources, all right? Hey, we know the burden of proof is on him because he's making the claim, right? But let me give y'all sources real quick, all right? Battle Axe, I don't know if you're still there. Let me show you this real quick. I know this Rose of Ma'afa has, and I like that name. That Ma'afa has to do with those of us in a diaspora as a result of the transatlantic slave trade that's been disconnected from our culture on the continent of Africa. So I like that, and Rose is something that's growing out of that situation. You know what? You have a dope name. I like that name. I will give you that. I like that name. You got a dope name. All right, so let me pull this up, and this is for you, my brother Battle Axe, right? And then after Battle Axe, I'm gonna share the sources. Y'all read for yourselves. See, we don't tell people what to think here. That's not how we work, Rose. You must be new here. I don't know, right? You ask me a question, I give you a summary. Sometimes I don't even answer your question. I just give you a source. I'm a bibliophile. I read. I've studied extensively on these sources, and I've been to conferences. I haven't seen you at none of them, but I've been to conferences where this stuff is going on and being discussed. I haven't seen you. Maybe because I don't know what you look like or who you are. I don't know. But I've been to conferences where this has been discussed. Several conferences. The last one I went to discuss was the G3 conference out here in Atlanta. Okay. So I've been to conferences on this stuff, right? And I'm part of two organizations where this is what they speak about objectively. Nonetheless, I'm going to give you sources, okay? So if you are a Patreon for years and been following for years, I appreciate your support and donation. That means you've seen all the books that I have on there that speak about this subject matter. So, Rose, do me a favor. Do a lecture, a PowerPoint, or a paper on this subject matter that is authored by you and present it. And once it's there, I will play it, I will read it publicly on my channel and critique it if necessary. That's all. It's not a problem, my brother. Again, there's no ill will towards you. All I'm saying is when you say no source, that's problematic for me. I can't function that way. No source, I can't function that way. Nobody in academia says no source. That's not how it works. You must provide sources. That's all. So, Battle Axe, thank you for still being there. Here is what I'm trying to show you. And let me provide those sources, right? Exodus 16 and verse 21, right? Morning by morning, they gathered it. They gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. Why is the text honing in on this clause right here? But when the sun grew hot, it melted. Why is this clause here after the semicolon? Why is that there? What is the importance of highlighting that part of the passage? Nazarene, I agree. This is why somebody like Battle Axe, this is why I'm engaging him the way I am, because he's authentic in his criticism. Same thing with you. Nazarene, you've criticized a few things I've done too, and I respect that. I can build with that because peer review is part of the game. Anybody that's afraid of peer review is building a cult. And I'm very leery of people that says no sources. It's problematic for me. I can't do that. But please, Battle Axe, answer that. Rose of Ma'afa, I'm going to put some sources there, right? Since you've already studied it extensively, let's equip the people to go and look at it objectively for themselves, and then we can revisit this conversation, right? Does that work? Rose, I already know you're not contentious, my brother. It's cool. I got you. It's cool. So that's why I'm presenting the sources, right? No problem, my brother. I'm just asking, if you are that passionate about it, do a lecture, put together a PowerPoint, or write a paper, submit it to me, and I will publicly display it. No problem. We'll weigh what your thesis is against the consensus, and we look for the points of contention, and we'll dive in it that way. That's all. But thank you so much for the donations, my brother. You're being very generous today. And again, I want to show that I am not shying away from this. If you go into my channel, you said you've been a patron and supporter, you've been following for years. I've done several lectures on this. I've brought it out before in the past. I put tons of sources on the Patreon about this. That's all. Okay, my brother. So much love to you. And again, I like your name. Your name is dope, right? Thank you for your support as well. But let me provide the sources. So I'm waiting for you, Battle Axe. Please, Battle Axe, answer that question. And then I'm going to put up these sources. Let me go ahead and grab the sources. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it out for y'all. All right. Here's source number 1. All right. Here's source number 1. Let's go to the next source. And let's get this from a skeptic. I'm going to give you a source from a skeptic who's an expert in this field. This is the next source. Here's the next source. And the first one is also an objective source. I gave you 2 sources that are objective, that have no dog in the fight. Now let me give you some other sources, okay? It's another source. These are all scholarly sources, by the way. I'm not giving you some random Joe Blow. That's not how I do research here. Here's your other source. Okay. Rose, I don't know who you are. You said, I agree. I actually told you a few months ago I was going to do, but Rose, who are you? I'd never seen this name Rose of Ma'afa before. So I have no clue who you are, my brother. I don't know who you are. Please tell me who you are so I know who you are. So the question is Battle Axe. When the sun grew hot and it melted, right? It says morning by morning, they gathered it each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted, right? So they must collect it, consume it, right? Because when the sun grew hot, it melted, meaning that they could no longer gather it. It says, but they did not listen, and some left it over till morning, right? And it bred worms and stank. The breeding worms and stinking has nothing to do with the sun melting it. If it's melted, it's not going to breed worms and stink as it's gone. The stuff that breed worms and stink is the stuff that's indoors that's being collected. But during the day is being gathered. 2 different things going on there. Okay, so that which is gathered and contained is the stuff that's going to breed worms and stink. But that which is left out in the open, that means this fine flake-like thing, right, melts during the day when the sun waxes the hottest, meaning it can no longer be gathered. What other work are they doing outside if this Sabbath is connected to the gathering of the manna? They're not doing that anymore once the sun waxes the hottest. That's all. Rose of Ma'afa, who are you? Please tell me who you are. I don't know who you are. Shout out to Mother Query in the building. Shalom, shalom. My brother Seth, I see you. Shalom. All right, more sources. Wait. There's more. Here's more sources. Hold on. Let's get more sources. I'm going to get more sources. I'm just going to keep giving you sources. Let's get another source. We source up over here. That's all. Boom. Here's another source. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let me get my final. What's my final source at? Oh, here it is. This is my last source. I got more, but I think I put way more than enough in the chat. Here's another source. Boom. Take some time. Click and download all those books there so we can have a dialogue around what Rosa Ma'afa had posted in the chat. And Rosa Ma'afa is not contentious, not being belligerent or disrespectful, being very assertive, and that's fine. I respect that, right? But at the end of the day, the sources need to stand. That's how we do scholarship over here. My opinion don't mean nothing unless it's 2 or 3 witnesses that can validate what I'm saying. And I'm providing more than 3 witnesses to you. I gave at least 5 or 6 witnesses just now. You said they were still doing other duties to prepare for the Sabbath. Well, those other duties are not connected to the gathering of the manna. So if preparation was to be done, that's fine. And I have no issue with that. But the text doesn't say that. Text doesn't say that. It said during the day. So when we have to be able to lock down what the day is. Matter of fact, let me give a source on that. Okay, so you don't think I'm just speaking just to speak. Let me give a source on that. Here's a source so you can take a look at what I'm talking about. There you go. All right, Battle Axe, and we can address this another time. But thank you for your feedback. Shout out to Ma'afa, Rosa Ma'afa. Shout out to Nazarene of the Way. Shout out to my brother Stacks, my brother Seth. Everybody that's giving feedback in the chat, I appreciate it. I love y'all. Thank you so much for the support. And I agree. Game Ampe. I always mess your name up. I'm sorry. Fresh manna, Yah substances, knowledge is the most beneficial man, of course. See, if you don't have a concrete example of doing something, you won't understand what the abstract is. For example, if I say you're to have discipline, that's good. But if I give you a physical lesson on what discipline is, every day you wake up at 6 a.m. and you take the garbage out. One is just words. The other one is the application of those words. It's tangible. It's concrete. And it reminds you back to the abstract. Remember I said with the mother and the father, the abstract and the concrete, they complement each other. You need both. Okay. Nazarene, of course. That's why I included it. I actually put 2 sources by him. And the other ones is by other respected authors who are experts in the field. So this is not I'm not being biased with this. I'm giving you sources outside of me to see what the consensus is. You ain't got to believe me. That's all. You get a source. You get a source. Everybody get a source. Oh, you funny, Stacks. Everybody get a source. Okay? That's all we do here is give sources. And see, that's the problem. You have these self-professed teachers in y'all communities that you got to ask them a question and give you an answer, and you just say, okay, because so-and-so said it. That's not how we rock over here. That's not how we rock. If I'm teaching people so they can teach me, I must give them the correct methodology to learn. So I then can be a student of them. That's important. Battle Axe, I see what you're saying, my brother. But that element, that baking and seething, that's restricted to indoors at nighttime. Outside, they also do it outside as well. So that's a good point. A good point. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong about an axe. Iron sharpens iron. That's what we go. That's what's going on right now. All right. Despite my studies and my knowledge, I never profess to be better than anybody. So I'm open to other perspectives. It helps me to learn. So thank you for your contributions. I appreciate that. Okay. And again, that's why I highlight them. Right. So when people share these things, they know that I'm not being biased. This journey is a collective one of learning. Not one person has all the answers. Not even me. I have a lot of answers, but I don't have all the answers. All right. So with that being said, game amped me. I'm sorry. Gotcha. I gotcha. No problem. So I'm going to bow out. Okay. Again, we'll have spent a little bit more time on our Freestyle Friday later on today. So make sure you guys tune in. We'll probably rock that out for 2.5 hours. Hopefully that guy shows up and we can have this discussion on the Trinity, which I think is very fascinating and I'm looking forward to. But hopefully he shows up. He seemed a little hesitant about whether you want to show up or not. And I said, well, I want to accommodate you as far as your time. He said, no, I should be available. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully you show up, Stanley. We'll see you later on today. We'll have this very critical discussion in regards to this Trinity. You made a very huge claim that if I show you that that is not biblically sound or accurate, that you will convert to KHM. And I was trying to tell you, I'm like, brother, you ain't got to be that extreme, but if you insist, you might as well put your dues up front and sign the paperwork. There's no way you can convince me of that. That's just not going to happen because I know the position. And I'm going to quote and cite a whole litany of stuff. So we'll get into it. All right. Much love to that, brother. Shout out to Kenny. I see you, King. What's going on? All right, family. So, so on disposition, so dispensation stems from John Nelson Darby. And his doctrine in Europe was promulgated by Schofield here in the U.S. via the 1908 Schofield Study Bible. If you don't have that, it's on the Patreon. I got everything on the Patreon. I got the history of John Nelson Darby and dispensationalism and that doctrine, which is a brand new doctrine, right? And then I show you how it got promulgated here in the States in 1908 by means of the Schofield Study Bible, right? And the study notes, right? It's commentary in that text. All right. So Felipe Flag 2, you said, what time is the debate? Well, I normally start at about 11 p.m. to whenever. So I asked him if he will be available at that time. He said he will. So hopefully he shows up. But that's typically when we go live here on our Freestyle Friday session. And if you're not familiar with that, I just want you to go back and check out our archives of our previous Freestyle Fridays and stick around. You know, if you're brand new, thank you for showing up here. I appreciate it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification, go back and check our archives out. You know, look at the content that we produce, whether you like it, hate it, love it, despise it, whatever. Come back and share some from your feedback so it can help us grow as a channel and as an organization, right? I welcome that, right? So, Rose of Ma'afa, please tell me who you are. I asked you to tell me who you are because you said you promised to do something. And I cannot hold you to a promise if I don't know your identity, right? Please tell me who you are. I'm about to close the show. I would love to know who you are because if you gave me your word about something, I need to hold you accountable for it, right? So I can't do that if I don't know who you are, right? So what I will do is I've sent sources out so the audience is more thoroughly familiar when we engage in conversation. What I will do is I can invite you to the platform next week after we give the audience some time to go over the subject matter. Remember, I've already lectured on this. You said you've been following me for years. You would have seen my lecture on this where I've talked about the historicity of the historical Yeshua Bar Yosef. I've already addressed this previously. Okay. But I want the audience to catch up or come up to speed with the information so they can weigh in themselves because this is not a personal discussion between me and you. If you want that, the link is down below. Click that, schedule an appointment, and let's talk one-on-one. Otherwise, this is for the edification of the people watching. So they have enough time to research it. And with that, they can come back. So while we're speaking, what we're saying is not going over their head. They already have the reference points in front of them, and they can weigh in. So collectively, as a community, we can peer review this topic. That's all. That's how I operate over here. If you've been following me for years, what I'm saying should not be a strange to you. Okay. Thank you so much, Kenny, for your donation, King. I truly appreciate that. You keep up the good work, my brother. Right. You keep up the good work, my brother. You're doing a good work in these streets. Keep up the good work, my brother. All right. But again, go back and study the 1908 Schofield Study Bible. That should be on the Patreon, because that will break down for you how the formulation of dispensationalism occurred. And again, it stems from John Nelson Darby. Okay, research John Nelson Darby. I'm giving you breadcrumbs, right? Go back and research this, and you'll see the origin of it. And then I got some books that speak on it objectively by scholars in the field, and they'll tell you that this is something that's brand new. Okay. Oh, you said you don't. Well, I may not know you, but Rose, you said that you told me that that's what you're going to work on. But if you told it to me, when, where, and who are you? I don't recognize that name, Rose of Maafa. That's something brand new. So if you did tell me something, then I can't hold you to it if I don't know who you are. That's all I'm saying. So I'm glad I inspired you, right? That's not me. Half the time, I don't even want to come on here and do this. It's overwhelming, right? But I allow y'all to prop me up and just use me as a ventriloquist that he is, to use me to speak what he wants the people to hear. That's all. And if you want to dive into this objectively using scholarly sources, we have to weigh the data in. Opinions don't mean nothing. We must look at the data and the methodology that comes to a consensus before we can say that's wrong, or I don't believe it, or I studied it and I have another perspective. That's fine. So let the audience come up to speed. They got 5 sources. They can read thoroughly. I'm sure a week is enough time to at least dip and dab into the sources. And then from there, we can discuss all the evidence on the table, evidence that is weighing in the favor of and evidence that's weighing in the favor against. And from that, as a community, we can come to a consensus. So keep studying, my brother. Keep pushing. I appreciate everything you've done. You said on Clubhouse, okay. Well, inbox me on back channel me on Clubhouse, so you can remind me who you are. Because I don't know who you are on YouTube, but if you're on Clubhouse and we have spoken, that's great. Inbox me and I can see who you are and we can come up to speed. But again, come back next Friday when the audience has enough time to go through the sources I gave them, so we all can weigh in on the conversation. Okay. Much love to you, my brother. I appreciate that. Seth, I'm gonna save that for tomorrow. We can talk about that tomorrow. Okay, that's a great source right there. Very insightful. We can discuss it tomorrow. And yes, I've read that book. All right, but let me close out because it's past 2 hours. I was not trying to go this long. This is not a freestyle Friday. It's just a check-in. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'm glad that the audio and video quality and the video and audio quality is up to par. I've replaced my webcam with my camcorder because I was issues with my webcam freezing and locking up. I don't know what was going on. I even updated the firmware. I'm not sure what's going on. So I will be gifting that to somebody else because it works fine on my other computer. It's just this one, it doesn't. It works fine on my laptop. It's just this computer, it doesn't. So it may be something isolated to this main board, right? So I'm using this camera. I'm glad it's working, and I'm glad that the quality is up to par. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for your support. If you're watching this on the replay and you do want to give, the thanks button should be down there. Click on the thanks button and you can give even when it's not live, right? If there's anything that we can do to serve you, right? Email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you want to patronize anything else that we offer, like our services, programs, and products, some links is in the description below. If you want a one-on-one with me, click on the link below. And I think that's it. All right. And I'm glad you caught it, Nazarene, because you on it. You know what I'm saying? So much love, family. Thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all. Oh, last thing. Game Ant Me. Facts. That's all I'm going to say is facts. That is facts. Also, anybody out there that needs any COVID-19 religious exemption letters for universities and schools, we are now opening up that service, but you must supply to us a policy from the school saying that they are willing to accept a religious exemption, right? So I just recently helped somebody who submitted a request and they posted some information of the policy from Temple University, and that was great for us to actually go into assisting them. So if anybody here needs assistance with a religious exemption form for COVID-19 for your school university, we are now assisting with that. Just please supply us with the policy, a screenshot of the policy where the school says that they are accepting it, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult in that arena, right? We're trying to make headway there, and we helped previously and it worked, but that was really just the most high. Like, the best way to do it is if there's a policy that allows it and that permits it. All right. So we're here to help. All right. I don't know who this person is. You see, the freaks come out at night. You see, y'all see that? That's real Christian magic right there. Cheryl Gabay. You see that? Can you punch yourself in the nose till you bleed? Who posts something like that? You here at 1:30 in the morning just to make a comment like that? You must really love me. It's okay. I understand. Wow, this is wild, man. Let me go before the Christian magic get really spooky. I love you, family. Thank you for watching. Peace and